All right. Hello, everybody. It's 11:59. Come on in. Come on in. I'm so excited that you are all here. It's National Self-Love Day. You guys are taking care of yourselves. You're taking care of your well-being. I've got an amazing, very smart guest today to teach all of us. So we're going to get started in just 1 minute. So come on in, get your water, get your tea. Get your coffee. Let's get settled and let's tune in. I don't know where you're tuning in from. Are you tuning in from locally? Are you tuning in from? I know I had one registrant I saw from Canada. Ooh. Yep. Awesome. All right. Well, let me restart. Well, it's noontime. I think we should get going. I think I want to be mindful of your time, and I'm excited that you're here for a lunch and learn session here with me. It is a snowy day here in Rhode Island. I hope wherever you are, it is equally, maybe it's a beautiful day, it's a beautiful weather, but I'm so excited. But the most important thing is that we're here together to talk about really the most important topic, and that's our own health. It's taking care of ourselves. And so I called this 5 office foods to boost your productivity and profits. The reality is we're actually going to share more than 5. So get your pen and your paper ready, get your tablets, however you're going to take notes, take some screenshots. We are recording today, so there will be a replay of this. So if you are watching on Facebook, please comment, and you're watching it post this workshop, please put a comment and let us know that you're watching the replay. I'd love to know that. So I'm going to introduce myself and my special guest in 1 second, but I commend all of you for being here. It's Happy National Self-Love Day. And what a perfect way to celebrate this holiday than thinking about ourselves, taking care of our health, and that health directly impacts our productivity, our perception at the office. When we feel good, it correlates to all kinds of perceptions and all kinds of productivity. And when we are at the office and we're eating healthier snacks and we're taking care of ourselves, it's seen, it's definitely noticed and observed. So thinking about all the ways that we can take care of ourselves. So I am so proud and excited to be here. I'm Lisa Shore, and a little bit about me. I've got 2 businesses, not just one. I've got Secure Future Tech Solutions. It's our IT business. Consider us outsourced IT. And I've been hanging out with my partner in crime, Eric Shore, co-owning that business for 25 years. Eric's been around for 31 years. I've also been building Shore Success, which is my image and brand coaching business. So I work with professionals on teaching them how to make impact and just shine. When they walk into the room, when you turn on a camera, how do you shine? How do you command that attention? I'm a speaker like I'm doing today, but I've been on national stages. I'm a writer. I'm a blog writer on my website. I have a blog section on my website. So read my articles, check them out. I'm also a member of the Association of Image Consultants. So I do extensive training in the image consulting world, in the community. And I'm a very proud mom of 2 daughters, aged 20 and 21. Now, I'm very proud to introduce my guest, and I'm going to let Wendy introduce herself. But Wendy and I are in a networking group together, and we share. So we're sharing ideas, we're sharing best practices, we're cheering each other on. And here we are marketing each other. So Wendy, why don't you give a couple of seconds and share who you are, the amazing you.
Thank you so much for that introduction. And it's been great getting to know you and your business. And I'm so happy that you invited me today. So my name is Wendy Leonard. I'm a registered dietitian nutritionist. I have over 20, I had to change that. It was 15. Now it's over 20 years of experience as a registered dietitian. And I specialize in medical nutrition therapy, or MNT, which is the practice of preventing, managing, and reversing diseases and conditions, but especially those chronic diseases through diet and lifestyle choices. I'm also the founder and owner of Rhode Island Nutrition Therapy, which was a single practitioner practice and has grown into 10 employees, which I'm very grateful for such a great team. A group dietetics practice, and we're located in North Kingstown, Rhode Island, but we have 3 other locations now. Our business is expanding, which is awesome. I am the mom of 4 teenagers and no twins, so it was painful, but I love it. And they're all out playing in the snow now at the dunes, which is a great place to go sledding here. So they're ages 14 to 19. So, and I had to put this little quote in here because as I wrote all that, I was like, yes, you can do it all. It just won't be perfect, just not perfectly.
And
So.
that's right. And that's all right. So you can see, everybody, I have quite the expert today. So Eric is monitoring the chat. So if you have questions, we will answer them at the end. So please do put questions in the chat. I know we're going to be introducing a lot of topics today. So I first want to create a visual. Look around your desk, whether you're at home, whether you're at your office and you were able to brave the snow, or everything's been plowed, or where you are, there isn't any snow. What snacks are tempting you right now or this afternoon? Does this desk look familiar to you? Chips and donuts and coffee and popcorn. Popcorn happens to be one of my favorite snacks, but Wendy's going to talk a little bit about that. When we ingest, it directly impacts our mood, our energy. And so how many of you think to yourselves, fall asleep? How many of you need that 2 o'clock or 3 o'clock nap because you had this fabulous sandwich for lunch with chips and potato salad, and then you end up lethargic? So thinking about that and thinking about our productivity, which leads to profitability, I want more for 2024. So I am now going to turn much of this over to Wendy to talk about ways that we can eat foods that will give us energy and just boost our mood and productivity. So Wendy, why in the world should we care about this?
Right. Okay. And I want to start it off too by just acknowledging the self-love day. And one of the things that I think of in terms of how, why we should care is I truly believe, and I see every single day, that an act of self-love is eating health in a healthy way. It's a form of self-respect, self-love, self-care. And when you kind of switch your perspective a bit and think in terms of that, and even how that impacts your business, it really, from that respect, it also makes a difference. But in terms of how this affects you, your body, your brain, we have research that actually shows that our food choices do have a direct impact on this list right here. So when I want you to think about which ones you're using every day with your business, or in your role with the company you're working for, your own business. So cognitive function, memory, and especially your short-term memory, what you're doing, your task day to day, and remembering, who your clients are and what task you were just working on when you got interrupted. It affects that. Mood. We know that the food affects your mood, not just, also your energy level, but we are even showing research that your gut microbiome, or the balance of good and bad bacteria in your gut, directly impacts and can affect depression, anxiety, other things like OCD, even some, some more some mental health issues like schizophrenia. We can also show a correlation between what's in the gut, and those diseases.
Hmm,
Stress, I know, stress levels, right? So one
big
example is
one.
go too long without eating and your blood glucose levels drop, and you get shaky and anxious, and then your cortisol levels go up, which, this is how the body functions when you aren't nourishing it properly. It's going to do these different things. And one thing is it will increase that cortisol, or that stress hormone. So even thinking about that, hormones. So, like, there's a stress hormone, it's called cortisol. Insulin is a hormone that helps you regulate your blood sugar. Food is what supports and creates those hormones, and creates that balance of hormones. So, not just stress hormones, but also estrogen and testosterone. So, these are things that we want to, support as much as we can. Decision making. How often in a day do you use your decision making skills? Well, if your brain isn't fueled, your body isn't fueled, you're going to have a more difficult time making those decisions. Your brain is not fueled to be able to do that. The quality of sleep. So that goes both ways. If you're not sleeping, that can actually impact your food choices. When you don't sleep well, you tend to crave more carbohydrates, more caffeine to just kind of keep your brain going. But it goes the other way too. So if you're not nourishing your body, or if you're having, foods that are overly stimulating, or you go to bed and you've eaten too much right before you go to bed because you haven't eaten all day, that that will affect your sleep. If you're having too much coffee, if you're having, alcohol, we know that affects your sleep. And then, that's going to affect have an impact on your success and how your brain is functioning the next day. So, and then quality of life. So to kind of sum it all up, in the end, all of these will add up to your quality of life. If you're not taking care of yourself, if you aren't, um, you know, taking the time, if you're not productive at work, if you're not making the money that you want to, if you're like not doing well and you're kind of beating yourself up, which can happen regardless of your food choices. But I just want you to think in terms of, then how is that going to impact you when you want to take a vacation, or you want to spend time, quality time with your family, or you want to go travel somewhere, and be physically fit enough to take a hike or explore. So all of these things, we're thinking like day to day, but I also want you to think about the long term
Right.
effect and impact that these have too.
There's a lot there, a lot to think about. And it's amazing how food is truly a foundational piece of our own individual's success in life. And it's deciding on the foods we put in our systems. I loved this slide when you sent it over. And I love that, because when we think about grabbing snacks, Wendy, we're just like, we're grabbing a snack. Well, what can I eat quick? I'm on the run. Let me just grab this. But what you were saying with this slide, and you can explain it, is there's really 4 areas to consider when selecting a snack. So I love this slide.
Yeah. So everyone's looking for, like, what's the perfect snack? But it really is a little bit more simple in a way when it comes to that. There are 4 components you want to look for when you're creating a snack and a meal, but in this case, we're focusing on a snack. So what you need are your healthy carbs. Carbs are your fruit, any type of grain. It can be like your cereals. It can be starchy vegetables. So those are healthy carbs. What those do is those give you quick energy, right? They start fueling. They fuel your brain. They fuel your body. Even like functions like your heart beating. You need carbohydrates.
Mm.
So that's the basis. I always say to my patients, it's not the carbs that are bad. It's you want to have the right type at the right time and the right amount. So choose your carbs wisely and watch your portions. Then you want to also add a healthy protein. Proteins are, a lot of times we'll think of animal proteins like your chicken or your beef. But there's also there's vegetarian proteins like tofu, tempeh, and then there's you have nuts and seeds, you have eggs, cheese. A lot of these foods can kind of cross over into like the healthy fats and the healthy carbs, but essentially you also want to make sure you get that protein in there. Those are the building blocks for your muscles, your connective tissue, your hair, your nails. And so that's the other piece. It also takes a little bit to digest that. So it stabilizes your blood glucose level, makes you feel full and satiated. So that's really important too. Then next you have your healthy fat. So fat, some people have a love-hate relationship with fat. Just because you eat fat doesn't mean you're going to turn into fat. There's a lot of great benefits to that. Fat fuels your brain directly. Without fats, you can see people decline very quickly if they have some type of fat malabsorption. Their brain, they start shuffling. Their brain isn't working the right way. I've seen it before. So fat is essential. So you need to incorporate that. It also helps support your hormones too. So, and then also stabilizes your blood sugar. It takes a while to digest fat, just like the protein. It makes you feel really satiated. If you've ever gone on a very low fat, no fat diet, you're probably always going to be like looking for something because you need that fat to really like stabilize you. It also helps with vitamin D absorption, which we're in the New England states, we're all pretty low in. So if you don't have fat in your diet, you're going to be low in vitamin D. The last component is phytonutrients. This is not a macronutrient, but a little different. So phytonutrients, I always say, like, think of a salad with lots of different things in there, the carrots and, olives and cucumbers and red onions in there. So think of all those and even chickpeas, other things, not just the lettuce, etc. But those colors, right? Those like beautiful, vibrant colors that you see in a salad. It's not just a color, it's actually a nutrient. There are different nutrients that create that color. So thinking of the one most of us know about, carrots, the color, the phytonutrient is beta carotene. And that serves a purpose. It's not just a pretty color and not something we're supposed to eat. That is coming in and doing a lot of different things, protecting the eyes, protecting the skin. Every color is doing something different. Food can actually go in and fight cancer, right? It can see those cells taking off and reproducing that when they're not supposed to, and the food, that those phytonutrients can go in and attack before it turns into something detrimental. So thinking in terms, I always say, try to get a rainbow if you can. You don't just want to focus on like, I just eat carrots. Think of all the other colors that you can get, and that comes from any plant-based food.
Love that. I never thought of that. I never thought about the colors of the vegetables or fruits that I'm eating make a difference. And so like thinking about, like, I love grapes and like green grapes, red grapes. We were chatting about that earlier, and to mix them up because each of those colors has their own set of nutrients. So I thought that was amazing, especially as someone like me who lives by color in my wardrobe. We intentionally dressed today. We were both wearing red. And so thinking about the psychology of color for our wardrobes, there's also the psychology, but also the medical benefits of color in our foods. I think that's amazing.
And one little side thing, which I think is really interesting, humans are actually designed to be attracted to colors for their own survival. So thinking in terms of like, your brain is wired from the beginning to see an apple or broccoli or, different blueberries and like go for that and eat it. It's like the way that we were created to survive and flourish. And that's through nourishing our bodies. And I also want you to think in terms of the food industry and think of Skittles, think of M&Ms, think of Kool-Aid, right?
Yeah.
How they've used this
Vibrant colors
to skew what we're attracted to. And then they've given us these super sweet, added the corn syrup to it and, all these things to make us like, continue to come back for it. But it's really, originally the the true purpose, for our bodies is that color is for our own health and vitality.
Love that. I love that. So speaking of different foods, so here I want you to test me on some of these, Wendy, and see how I do. So, when you're thinking about foods of what we should eat, here are some common snacks that I know we all have in our offices, in our home office, at our, at our places of work. Here are some snacks, and think about each one of you who is tuning in right now. How many of you have these snacks right in front of you or in your refrigerator? So let's talk about some of them, some of the myths out there, Wendy.
Sure. Okay, so I picked these and I even put them in the little bubbles because these are some of the things that patients come in and they're telling us as far as snacks. And I also want to make sure that I make it clear that there's no bad or good food. When you talk about these things, sometimes you can like get fearful of food and,
Right.
it can really damage that relationship. So I just want to preface it with that. But just for the purposes of education, kind of going through this. So I'll start off with first the high protein, low carb bars, like Atkins or,
See keto bars. I see a lot of those.
keto bars, right? Where there's very little carbohydrates, or it even says like, 2 net carbs and then high protein, like 30 grams of protein. Well, as a dietitian, we look a little deeper, right? I want to look at what's in the ingredient list. And typically these bars still taste sweet, but they're very low in carbohydrates. And that's because they're putting a lot of added, like the artificial sweeteners in there, which would, might be aspartame or sucralose or some of the sugar alcohols where they end in OL. And really like these affect our glucose levels throughout the day and our insulin levels, but they also now we know that these also affect our gut health and that bacteria balance, and they really feed into some of the bad bacteria in our gut, which we know can ultimately affect our immune system in the long run. So these are short term, like eat it, it's easy, it's in a package. But really, and when we go back to that, referring back to that last slide where we have those 4 components, it's got the protein, it may or may not have the fat, it does not have the carbohydrates in there, and it really doesn't have the phytonutrients. And then on top of that has something that isn't on here, which is a lot of the artificial additives.
Oh,
So
yeah.
I would steer clear of those. Lisa, is there anything on here that you're like sounds familiar, or something that you might?
There are 3 items on here that are really my big snacks. Yogurt. I do love yogurt. I don't often buy light yogurt because I don't know why I don't. I'm just going to get the regular yogurt.
Yeah.
But I do like it sweetened. Like I'll buy like a strawberry or a raspberry. Probably not the best option, you're going to tell me. And I do love that popcorn, which is the next one. But can you talk a little bit? A lot of us eat yogurt. I mean, it's a quick, you can throw it in your lunch bag. I'm going to work. I'm just going to throw in some yogurts.
Right. Well, the light yogurts are like Light and Fit, which is a Dannon product, which, I have a lot of patients have it. I've tried, like I've had it before, and it's so sweet. Like it goes down easy, but it's not that many calories, so it seems great. But again, we got to dig a little bit deeper. You have to look at the label and just knowing, the word light itself means that they have reduced the calories and the fat in that product, but that typically means that they have replaced it with something else. So when you look at that ingredient list, yep, they may have cut out some of the fat on there. They've definitely cut out the sugar, but then they've replaced that with the artificial sweeteners, the aspartame, the sucralose. And so again, it goes back to how that impacts our gut health. And also, like, you don't necessarily want to take out the fat. Like we pointed out in the last slide, that you do need that fat. It makes you feel satiated. So a better option would be, I would say, get a Greek yogurt, and it's okay if it has fat in it. Sometimes I'll get the full fat, like the Fage full fat yogurt, or I might get like just a low fat one. But I like Greek yogurt because it has that added protein in it. Yogurt still has a lot of added sugar in it, which really isn't necessarily kind of grown accustomed to having all this extra sugar, or the fruit in the bottom, or the flip where we put like the chocolate chips and the granola on top. But it is a little bit of an acquired taste, but I challenge you to do a plain Greek yogurt, put some fruit on top. Like I love berries, a little, one thing I do is frozen wild organic blueberries. I pull them straight out of the freezer, open the bag, just put some on top. They start to like melt just a little bit, turns it this beautiful purple color. And if you do need a little extra sweetener, you can just drizzle a little raw honey on there. That has some anti-inflammatory effects too, and doesn't impact your blood glucose levels in the same way regular sugar does. So that makes a nice little parfait with, very little sugar, just some natural sugars from the fructose and the honey. And you'll be really satisfied after having that.
I can make that change. But I also know that, okay, so shifting over to like the trail, I think trail mix and popcorn, bags of popcorn, bags of trail mix. We all have them in our offices that you can buy them in bulk, right? So it's a cost-effective snack for ourselves, for our teams. What are your thoughts?
Yeah.
Or should I say, because, there's a saying, everything in moderation, right? So how do we incorporate maybe these into, but shift over to something, a better option? Is there a better option to these?
Yeah. So really, this kind of goes back to, okay, did we get those 4 components in there, and why we have those 4 components, and looking at this one, if it's popcorn or pretzels, you're just in that first little square there, just the healthy carbs, right? Which is fine. But if you're I always explain it to my patients, your stomach has acid is strong in it as your car with the battery, right? If you've ever, battery acid, it will cut through the carpet, in your car. So it's so acidic, right? So when you have food, fiber, you have that fat, you have protein, it takes a while, even with that acid in your stomach and the churning, it still takes a while to break down. So you actually feel fuller longer. Now, think about a piece of popcorn hitting acid, like poof, it's gone. It will never fill you up, right? And so if you are going to have popcorn, which is fine, combine it with something. So those two could actually go together if you wanted, right? So the trail mix, if you're, especially if it's just like, you're doing nuts, it can, my point in putting this one down is it can add up very quickly with the nuts being like high calories, but combine the nuts with the popcorn, right? And not the old Cracker Jacks where they did it, because that has a lot of added sugar.
They're
But
so yummy.
concept is right, where the carbohydrate and that protein and fat, and you'll be satisfied with a smaller amount versus, I don't know about you, but like Smart Pop, I could eat a whole bag. I used to have pirate booty when my kids were little, like, the like goldfish. Once you start, they actually, in some of these foods like goldfish, they put additives in there that make you addicted to it. So you might just have one and not be that hungry because your kids are eating something and you're like, let me just have a goldfish. And then before you know it, you're like, give me those goldfish, So it does kind of change your brain. And that's why we have to keep that in mind too, like getting away from, some of these foods that are overly processed and getting back to more whole foods without all these additives. But my point with that is nothing's wrong with popcorn or pretzels. Can you combine it with, a protein and a fat so that it's balanced and you feel more satisfied?
So everybody should take a screenshot of this slide here and say, okay, when I'm selecting my snacks, if I'm really going to be intentional, let me consider, does it, align with these 4 aspects? So think back. So those are some of the myths and some of those common snacks. Let's for those visual learners here, but like myself, here are some images and some ideas to bring to your office or to make at home. It's easier to obviously make it at home. You're already in your kitchen or you're in your home. Here's some great ideas. And this really takes into account the phytonutrients that you mentioned. There's a lot of color here other than some of the peanut butter items, but there's a lot of color on this slide for sure. So why don't you talk about some of our ideas that we can do for ourselves?
Right. So these healthy snack ideas bring into play those four components that we have, especially the 3 macronutrients with the carb, protein, and fat. So you always see here, there's a plus sign with each example. And that's because that combination is going to be key. You know, when it comes to is there a perfect snack? There's a lot of perfect snacks, but really you want to think about fueling your brain and your body and balancing blood glucose levels and preventing overeating. Like those are the main things. And these are doing that. So you'll see in the first example, a half of a banana. Most of the time a fruit is, you know, an apple is a serving, a pear, an orange. Those are that natural God-given servings, right? But in this case, it's a half a banana because bananas don't have a lot of water. It's a very starchy fruit. And so really it is a half banana unless you get like the really tiny ones. So half banana, a handful of nuts. If you want to get those phytonutrients, get, you know, in different essential fatty acids in there, get different colors, get different nuts in there. Combine your almonds with pecans and pistachios, Brazil nuts, get a mixture in there, just like with the color of the rainbow. Those are going to provide different nutrients as well. With the hummus and veggies, one of my favorites. So the chickpeas are going to be your carbohydrate, but they're also going to have some protein in there and some fiber, which is nice. So that one is kind of all inclusive. And then I like to add those non-starchy veggies and try to get your rainbow with the different vegetables that you can add there. The peanut butter or you can use almond butter or a seed butter, those protein bites. There's some great recipes online. Portion is key with this. And, but you know, what you're doing is with the peanut butter or the other nut or seed butter, you've got your protein and your fat there. And with the added oats, you have your carbohydrate, but also some added protein or added fiber as well. So that makes a great little snack. I always recommend, like, if you make them ahead of time, and they're usually, you know, no bake. So put them into little, you know, containers or little snack packs with the two, throw them in the freezer. And then in the morning on your way out or to your home office, just grab one, take it with you. It'll, you know, by the time you have it, especially if it's an afternoon snack, it'll be thawed out. It'll be perfect.
I've made these before and they are delicious. There are recipes online and I can definitely say that they are delicious and they do satisfy you for a little while. You know, it holds you over until either the next snack time or the next meal. It definitely, so
exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
We talked about the Greek yogurt and the berries. The grapes and the cheese, another example of a protein that you can use. Cheese has the protein and the fat in it. It's just the portion, right? So, you know, I know that on one time, like in grad school, I was in a kick of like coming home and having like grapes, cheese, and crackers, and I gained some pounds like during that semester. So it was healthy, but it was just the portion that I was having of the cheese. It was too much. It can add up really quickly. So, but when you have that combination, right, the grapes and the cheese, and it's, you know, setting out in front of you, it's not like you can keep going back or you're talking and, you know, cooking, things like that. You want it to be mindful too. So, but that 1 ounce of cheese with the grapes or another fruit makes a perfect combination using all 4 of those components. And then the almond butter and rice cake is a little boring, but sometimes, you know, people just want something quick, and that this is really quick, right? And again, you can use the sun butter, or you could use a flaxseed butter. It doesn't have to be the almond butter. And then you also have the option, they have brown rice cakes too, so it adds a little bit more fiber to that. And that, like, you'll know, I mean, I could eat like a whole sleeve of rice cakes because of what I was talking about before with hitting the stomach acid, it's gone. But have a rice cake, put a tablespoon of some type of nut or seed butter on there, enjoy it, be mindful of it, and you will feel satisfied.
So I'm so thankful. The last 2 slides that we have talk about really my favorites. And so this one happens to be chocolate. And I know it's not a Hershey bar. It's not necessarily a Reese's peanut butter cup, which is my favorite, or M&Ms, but there are healthy chocolates. So yay. I love
Yeah, absolutely. And, you know, it's Valentine's Day. So
right.
we got to celebrate chocolate. But you're right. There are differences between how we consume our chocolate. But dark chocolate in its essence is actually a phytonutrient, meaning that it does fight disease. It's a food that fights disease. Food is medicine. Now, what we're looking for with dark chocolate is you want to look for 70% or higher with the cacao. So the cacao is actually the antioxidant that we make into chocolate. Now, again, most of your Hershey bars and other commercial chocolates, they're going to have a lot more sugar added. That cacao, percentage is going to go down, down, down. There's also a lot of other additives just for that mouthfeel, etc. So the higher it is, the more bitter the flavor is. But I always, there's a little bit of a silver lining to that. And it's hard to binge on dark chocolate. It can be very enjoyable. The way that you're supposed to eat chocolate is you just take a small piece, you put it in your mouth, and you just savor that. You let it melt, and you really enjoy that flavor. It's hard to do when you're used to like eating, some of the Halloween chocolate candy, but that's really kind of your focus. Again, kind of being mindful and intentional with, instead of just plugging away and working and like shoving the food in, take a moment. That's really important. So, but there are benefits to that. And I love this, not necessarily a snack in terms of that slide where we have all the different components of a healthy snack, but when you just need a little pick me up, and if you do like chocolate, then getting that dark chocolate, and it's really just like that one ounce square, kind of like those little Godiva, individually wrapped squares, and having that, matching that with a cup of either peppermint tea, which is a natural kind of pick me up, or a green tea, which is also has antioxidants. It's a little pick me up, has a little bit of caffeine in there too. We'll get to that on the next slide. I don't mean to jump ahead, but I just want to mention that. So it doesn't always, sometimes you don't need a snack. You just need something to kind of boost your brain a bit. And I really like that combination with the chocolate and the tea.
So in our last slide, we're going to talk about coffee and tea and the benefits. Build in the conversation though. So I always put cinnamon on my coffee. I just sprinkle it on there. And so I want everybody to walk away with some notes on, there are different spices that also impact our inflammation in our bodies, our energy, our mood, even our taste buds. I mean, that's a big deal too, when we're thinking about eating a healthier way, a more mindful way. We really also think about our taste buds. And why do we gravitate towards Doritos, towards M&Ms? Because it just excites our taste buds and it tastes better. But once we, but there are a lot of ways that we can enhance the flavor of things using things like cinnamon and honey.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
So talk a little bit about that.
Cinnamon, all of these spices, date back thousands and thousands of years and have been used medicinally in the past too. And we kind of forget that. And we just use it for like, okay, let's add a little bit of this, a little bit of that. But cinnamon, there's great research showing that can regulate and lower blood glucose level for those who have prediabetes and type 2 diabetes. So just, there are cinnamon capsules that you can take, but really just kind of being more mindful and, figuring out how you can incorporate more of these herbal, these spices and herbs into our daily life and into our meals and snacks, like turmeric latte. Like I love lattes, and if they have a turmeric latte, I'll have it because it has that added healing benefit and added anti-inflammatory benefit. And so it's something, sometimes it's nice when you think in terms of, food and being healthy, not to think in terms of, oh, I can't eat that. Like I have to take that away. I have to eliminate that. It's like, let's add on, right? What can you add on that, just thinking a little bit more about it. And, you have coffee every day, add a little cinnamon to it or to your tea, or put a cinnamon stick in your tea and make your own tea. So there's lots of ways to do that. And, ginger is great for your GI tract. If you're having, it helps with motility. It also helps if you're having a little nausea at times. So there's some healing benefits to that too. And turmeric, I have a lot of patients on that, or the curcumin, which is the component of turmeric that reduces inflammation, especially with joints.
Love that. And you can add them all into your tea, right? As you can, as a powder, or you can take them as a supplement. But so tea and coffee is actually, they're beneficial for us. So I know for me, I've got a Keurig machine, I've got a French press, I've got an espresso machine. I like my coffee. So thank goodness you're telling us it's okay to drink coffee. So then
Right.
there are actual benefits.
Right. The coffee bean again is anti-inflammatory. It is one of those phytonutrients, right? We don't think of it, but because it's brown, but brown is actually one of our phytonutrients. So, and when it comes to the coffee bean, it's actually or drinking coffee, it's a little bit of moderation, right? And knowing your body. Some people, they get just very anxious when they drink it, or they get to a certain point and, stress takes over. So you have to know kind of your limit, but there are again, studies out there that show that you can reduce the risk of certain cancers. We know that it does increase your cognitive ability, at least short term.
Mm.
And, prostate cancer is one that there's some research out there that shows the intake of coffee is correlated with reduced risk of prostate cancer. So there's some great benefits. And again, that comes back to the phytonutrients in the coffee bean that are going in and working like a medicine. So now you always bring it back to, are you also supporting yourself nutritionally when you're using some of these food, like coffee, for example, that has a little bit of a stimulant effect? If you just plug away and you're going by cup after cup of coffee, but you haven't eaten throughout the day, that's really, you will not be able to sustain that. It'll be like a crash and burn effect. But utilizing that while you're also fueling your body throughout the day can be really beneficial to how your brain works. So it's not just the phytonutrient antioxidant effect of brain, fueling your brain in that way, but also a little bit of that caffeine as well. So can help you cognitively. So that's like a win-win. The tea. So tea also, whether it's the green tea, some of the herbal teas like white tea. So those colors, right? So those are the antioxidants. We know that those are, fighting disease, but also fueling the brain. Black tea and green tea do have some natural caffeine in it. Depends on how long you steep it, etc. So, and it's a little bit tamed down. Like I can't drink coffee, or I do get a little,
Very little, yeah.
heart rate goes up a little bit. But tea, I can have a cup of tea in the morning, a cup of tea in the afternoon, and that really kind of takes me through the day. And then if I still need a little something warm or a little pick me up after that, I'll have my green tea. So again, people are already using these. So it does help to know that they are healthy. I also just want to point out, make sure you think about what you're putting into your coffee too. So coffee itself is great, but there's a lot of,
I mean,
creamer,
like the creamers, yeah.
the sweeteners, and there's a time and a place for that. But if especially if you're using some of these commercialized creamers, look at the ingredients, right? And see, how many ingredients are on that list. A lot of those have the artificial sweeteners, or they have the high fructose corn syrup. And, they're using some modified protein or dairies, which really, I always say if your body doesn't recognize it as a food, what you're putting into your body, it will recognize it as an invader. An invader meaning this isn't safe, a bacteria, virus, parasite, your body doesn't know, and it will react with inflammation. So the more, that's why we push whole foods. Your body knows what to do with, a nut or a piece of fruit. It doesn't know what to do with aspartame. It doesn't know what to do with high fructose corn syrup, and it will immediately cause inflammation in your gut, which will ultimately go systemically. And, inflammation affects your brain. So on a short-term level and long-term. So it's really important, like just I think this is I'm so glad that you brought up this topic, because I think my hope is that everyone walk away with like one or two things that they can try and build on that one habit at a time, and feel the difference.
I love it. There's so much information you provided today on how there's a lot of habits that we have, a lot of convenience, a lot of habits, but those eating habits impact when we're, thinking about ourselves. It's Self-Love Day. It's National Self-Love Day. So this is the day to honor you and you alone. Respect yourself when you are building your brand, building your connections, but really just taking care of yourself. It impacts almost everything around you. Eric, are there any questions in the chat for Wendy or me?
Yes. Why can't I stop eating sugary snacks once I get started?
Good question.
You want me to answer that?
Please.
Again, the brain, the wiring of the brain is interesting, and everyone's wired differently. So I would ask yourself, if you feel that way, one, have you set yourself up for success before you start having something sweet? So going back to those 4 components, have you eaten with that balance earlier in the day? Or were you skipping the carb, for example, like, oh, carbs are bad. And then, you start to like kind of have a craving for something sweet and you can't stop. A lot of times that'll happen because you didn't get what you needed earlier in the day. And it literally is your survival mechanism, that if you are deprived by some type of nutrient, whether that's a carb, protein, fat, or a micronutrient like vitamin D, vitamin C, etc., your body is trained to seek that out and get that. And so it can become almost like impulsive in that way. Also looking at what those ingredients are. A lot of times there are food, in our foods, there are ingredients that, are created to make us addicted to them. One time I looked at, a breakfast sandwich at Dunkin' Donuts, and it had in the ingredient list of that, which seemed like a healthy veggie egg wrap, there were 9 different ingredients in there that are known ingredients that will create addiction in mammals. And so it may be touted as a preservative or a food modifier, but they are also creating addiction in the human brain. So sometimes it's one bite, and like that goldfish, right? Like, you're not that hungry, but there's a goldfish, I'm gonna have it.
Handful.
Yeah, and that is because the ingredients in there were put in there for a reason, right? To make you come back for more and go back to the grocery store and pick it out again. And so it's good to know that, to have that awareness and start rewiring your brain away from those choices.
So if you have other questions, you want to reach out to Wendy, you want to talk about your eating habits and maybe make some changes, some enhancements, gain some knowledge, take a screenshot here. There's plenty of ways to connect with Wendy. There's her email. You can find her on Instagram. You can message her there. You can find Rhode Island Nutrition Therapy on Facebook. They've done some amazing on their Instagram channel. They've done some amazing posts on different foods. I was scrolling through it the other day when I was preparing for today. So take a screenshot. And Wendy, thank you so much for sharing your knowledge, your insights. This is me. If you want to connect with me and Shore Success, and you just want more out of 2024, and you want to build your brand and your credibility and get out there and some coaching and someone to just cheer you on, connect with me. Connect with me. This is my calendar link here. Go right on and get that QR code and book a meeting with me. Please follow me socially. And let's keep the conversation going. Let's keep that conversation and the connection going. Take a screenshot of this slide. Also, one more time, here's Wendy. So take a, in case you missed it. And then here's me. And I'm going to stop sharing now. We are so grateful. Thank you so much, everybody, for sharing the love. Come on, let's do some hearts, Wendy, for everybody. Thank you, Eric, for being our tech guru in the background and for managing the chat. It's always greatly appreciated to have your help and support. And so I'm grateful for that as well. So we'll see everybody. Have an amazing week and really think about those foods that you're eating and how it impacts your productivity in your daily life. I think I love that you said quality of life, and food is a direct impact. So thank you, everybody. Have a great day. Take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye, everybody.